microphone.
The title of this presentation is Itinerant Dynamics Approach Between Multiple Scales. The project work is done by collaborating with Takami-san, and Takahashi-san, Mibu-san, and Aoyagi-san. And the overview of this presentation is as follows. Number one, at first, we look into the physicist's approach to phenomena briefly. Number two, we introduce the concept of multi-scale. The topic of number one and two is conceptual. Number three, from this part, we introduce some examples. The first example is a life of a typhoon. This is a just example. Number four, this is the second example. We introduce the elementary process of compound and cluster. This is the result by using multi-dynamic distribution. In this part, you'll see a primitive example of an emergent phenomenon. Number five. This part is last one, and it is about sound generation in air-raid musical instruments. This is a preliminary result of numerical calculations. Let's imagine one phenomenon. For dynamic points of view, it should have a start and end. However, the traditional approach of physics can only describe these static products with mathematical tools and operations or approximations, such as taking limits, averaging, and simplifying, and so on. In order to describe creation and annihilation processes, another approach must be introduced because they are essentially multi-scale with dynamic, emergent, transient phenomena. And this is a schematic picture of traditional description by physics, where each theory has its own domain to be applicable. Nature itself is constructed from various ingredients from atoms and molecules at the smallest ones to cells and organisms with larger scales. And it exhibits complex phenomena over these multiple scales. The important point is that there rarely exist multiple hierarchies in dynamic phenomena relative to their scales, which is independent of the description of physics. Thus, the traditional approach of physics are not powerful for essentially multi-scale phenomena and cannot describe emergence of such hierarchy in dynamics. In the following slides, we present several examples of multi-scale phenomena. The first example is a life of a typhoon. This is a just example of multi-scale phenomena. How does it begin and end? And what do we need to understand a life of a typhoon? As a second example, we show dynamics of a small kappa cluster, in which we present an emergent phenomenon of a hierarchy in dynamics. Time evolution of 67 kappa atoms is obtained by molecular dynamics simulation at 500 Kelvin. The color of these circles, red one, yellow one, and blue one, is introduced as a mark of the initial placement of atoms to observe accumulation of the elementary process of cluster, that is, rearranging atoms. The two different states are detected in the dynamics, which can be expected from this graph, which is a time series of total potential energy of the cluster. And those different dynamic states are shown in these animations. Inactive states is a relatively frozen state, where only a few atoms near both sides can move. On the other hand, the state of active, almost all the atoms on the surface of cluster can move. Please note that these two states cannot be defined by their structure, but dynamic description of those states are necessary. And moreover, the transition between these states cannot be predicted from the structure of the cluster. It looks like random processes. Thus, even a simple system can have multiple states in dynamics. This itinerant dynamics can be interpreted as the most primitive example of creation and annihilation of dynamical states in physics. As the last example, we introduce the mechanism of sound generation in air-reed musical instruments. Air-reed musical instruments are, for example, block flute, also known as recorder, and flute, and some stops of pipe organ, and so on. According to the book, The Physics of the Musical Instruments, written by Fletcher, our knowledge of the physics of air-reed instruments is summarized in this slide. This is a schematic picture of block flute. A player plays block flute, then airflow jets and vortexes are formed, and sound is generated by vortexes. But in this situation, sound is still equal to just noise. The resonator, that is the body of the instrument, selects characteristic frequencies from noise. Then the selected noises interact with jets and affect vortexes generation. These processes make a strategy. In that way, a vortex sound becomes musical sound. The point of this phenomenon is that interaction between sound and fluid. In more detail, feedback mechanism from sound to fluid is important, and it is unclear. And in the resonator, sound pressure is up to 140 decibel. It means that the energy of the airflow is 10 to the power 5 times larger than the energy of the generated sound under typical conditions in playing musical instruments. Next, we show some preliminary results of numerical simulation. These animations are numerical results by two-dimensional large area simulation. And this one is pressure of sound. And this one is shows velocity of airflows. And you can see the vibration of jets. And this is air rate. And lower one is light hails sound source. And this is a time series of pressure. You can see sound generation and its propagation. But we have not understood the feedback mechanism from sound to fluid yet. Then summarizing the physics of this musical instrument. There are two energy classes. One of them is fluid, and the other is sound. The order of the energy scale between them is up to 10 to the power 5. The second point is that their coexistence and interact each other. The last one is just about interpretation. The work generated by the Navier-Stokes equation can be interpreted as a bonsai of nature, because we think that the system described by Navier-Stokes equation includes endo-exocyclation in itself. This is the last slide, the summary of this presentation. Emergent phenomena generally exist even in simple systems, which are described by physics. But we have not acquired any language to describe them yet. And now we are trying to accumulate fundamental evidences in computer simulations. Thank you for your attention.